Human design is a new system, which is a synthesis of science and spirituality. So it combines things such as the chakra system, the Chinese I Ching, the Kabbalah and astrology, as well as things like quantum mechanics, astronomy, biochemistry, and genetics. It's important to say that human design is not any one of these systems, but it is a synthesis of them all and is an entirely new system in itself. And the purpose of the system is to show us our unique blueprint, our coding, our energetic makeup. Anne likes to call it our instruction manual or our clothing label, because it helps us to know who we are. So the system is here to show us how unique we are compared to anyone else in the world, and it's known as the science of differentiation. It's here to help us understand ourselves better, but also how to align with that uniqueness in our own specific way. So let's go on to today's topic, this repositioning the purpose of the mind. So let's become familiar with how the mind works. Now, we're all familiar with how the mind likes to chatter. There's a constant narration in our mind which no one else can hear. Everyone has a different personal narration. It's your own narration of life. We become very familiar with that voice in our mind. We trust that voice in our mind, and we've been told to be clever, to be logical, to understand and to make sense out of things, to make wise decisions. And we ruminate on all of our decisions. We think about them before we do them, and then we think about them after we've done them. Our mind likes to overthink, and it thinks about everything, both the things we want to happen, like our dreams and our desires, our fantasies, our imagination, and the things that we don't want to happen, like our fears and our self-critical thinking and our worst case scenarios. It looks into our past. Why did something happen the way that it did? And it looks into our future. What's going to happen? Why is this happening the way it is, and where's it going to lead to? It tells us what direction we should go in to best achieve our goals, which, by the way, your mind has decided which goals to strive for based on what it's seen within your society, right? It tells us who we should hang out with and who we should not hang out with. It's that constant narration which we attach truth to. So my question to you is, do you feel that constant narration? Is that something you are familiar with? Yeah. Now, it is a voice that has been with us our entire lives, and it will be with us for the rest of our lives. And society, and especially the Western world, has taught us to trust it, to harness it, and to decide with it. And when our mind thinks, we then take action on those thoughts. When we take action or we don't take action, we try to defend our decision with reasons. Reasons are something which society has placed big emphasis on, the why of a decision. Now, the truth is, when you make a decision without the mind, there won't be a why. There won't be an explanation. There will just be the decision. So when we attach the whys, we are halting our movement into a decision that is for us or not for us. Now, the mind likes to commit to its decisions. It takes the most logical route, depending on what it has analysed with its pros and its cons, the fors and against. And then it gets very invested in the outcome that it's predicted that will happen once it takes that decision. And if the outcome doesn't go as planned, the mind tries to course correct again. We all know this feeling, right? We know when we make a decision, we kick ourselves when it doesn't go the way we thought it was going to go or the way that we wanted it to go. We then make another decision with a new predicted outcome. And this is how the mind works. It ties us in knots. It bases its decisions on the most predictable outcome, but we just don't know. The mind doesn't know what's going to happen next. It bases its decisions on what it has learned about in the past. That's its point of reference. It bases its decisions based on feelings and inner narratives of who you are and where you are going. It quite simply does not know how to make a decision about a future circumstance it hasn't seen yet, because it hasn't happened. It cannot get you to your place to become who you are here to be, because it's just not there yet. You're not that person from the future. So we can't trust the mind to know what's best for us, but it does guess. And when we take action off of those guesses, that is what takes us in loops. So why is this the case with the mind? Now, we live in a world where the mind is put on a pedestal, really. Schools tell us to think, parents tell us to think. We have phrases all around society which are like, think about it, take some more time to think, weigh it up and then decide, make a good, well thought out decision. What are your reasons? And the mind has been associated with intelligence and strategy. The thing is, the mind used to be our decision maker, but things have changed since then. We've had a new download, we've had a new upgrade in our evolutionary process since then as human beings. We're different now. And things are continuing to change. So the mind is no longer here to make decisions for us. And we're moving to a world which is less strategic and less logical. But we're still within those structures right now, and our environment is shaping us. So the schooling system still encourages us to think with the mind and then to decide. The systems and structures that we are within are not flowy and intuitive. They are cold and rigid because they are built with the mind. Back in the day when our mind was in charge, our systems are old. Now, here's another question. Why does it seem like the mind knows everything about who we are? Now, to give you a bit of science from the human design system, or at least a theory from the human design system, because regardless of what I say, we know the mind feels like it's in charge, right? It feels like it's in charge. We're familiar with the voice in our heads, and we are familiar with its narratives. So why does the mind feel like it's in charge if it's not meant to be anymore? So the mind is biologically associated in our biology with our master gland in our body. And the master gland in our body has awareness over all parts of who we are. It's like we have little sensors around our whole body, and the mind is hooked up to those sensors. It knows it all because it's the central processing hub. So it has all that information coming to it from your body, so it can see and interpret everything. But it does not mean that it knows where you're meant to go next or what the future will hold. So here's a reframe that I want to give you. Our mind is like a computer processor. It sees everything. It processes everything. It forms stories of everything it sees and experiences. The mind is like a narrator, and it narrates everything in your life based on the stories it has, based on the things it has processed. And it makes decisions if something's good or bad or right or wrong, and these are the narratives. Now, the last analogy I want to give you is the mind is like a toddler. Now, human design calls the mind the monkey mind, but I call it the toddler mind. That's how I interpret it. The toddler is constantly looking and learning. It's constantly talking. Why is this? Why is this? Like, it's just talking. It wants to know everything. It wants to be involved. However, my question to you is, would you let a toddler make a decision for you in your life? So I like to see my mind as a separate entity. I put it over here and I let it talk. I let it talk and talk and talk, and I listen. And when that narrative comes, I don't make a decision with it. I get curious about that narrative. I go to my life coach and I talk to her about it. I get to the root of why my mind would even come to that conclusion. I don't make a decision with it. So let's reposition the mind even further, reposition the purpose even further. In human design, we use the concept of the passenger. The mind is the passenger in life. The passenger within your vehicle, your body, a bit like a car, and you're the passenger in the car. This is your vehicle, your body. You are here with your mind to watch and observe like a good passenger, not here to be a backseat driver trying to direct life, trying to control the temperature, all of this stuff. You're here to look out the window, to observe, to narrate. Life is a movie, and your mind is going to narrate, so let it. Your practice now, your challenge now, is to watch the mind as a separate thing than yourself. So you're just listening. You're listening to all of those narratives and all of the stories it's telling you, but you're just listening, not acting on any of that stuff it's telling you. The mind is simply processing, and it's biased, and it's not objectively seeing the world. Okay. Now I mentioned journal prompts, so here they are for you. So the first prompt is a general prompt. I want you to start noticing the narration of your mind, and I want you to start noticing the stories that your mind is telling you. I want you, when a situation happens in life, to be in that situation and then to observe what your mind is telling you about that situation and what that means. So common things can be the stories that we speak about our partners or our friends or our family, our connections. We often say things like, well, if they do this, then it means this. And we come to a very black and white, yep, this means this. Start writing down those narratives, become really clear about what your mind's telling you. Another common one is what we say about ourselves to ourselves. Things like, oh, I can't do that because. What's the because? Or I feel self-conscious because. What are these becauses? Why can't you do something? Why do you feel that way about yourself? What do you need more of? What is the story you're telling yourself? So I want you to start writing these narrations down. I want you to start spotting how your mind is talking to you, to start noticing the patterns and physically writing them down so you can see it outside of yourself. It changes it as soon as you take it outside of yourself. I want you to ask yourself, can you get curious about these stories your mind is telling you? Because these are just stories, that's all they are. Stories that the mind has come to the conclusion of. I don't want you doing anything else with those thoughts or those patterns, just to become aware of them for now. Like I said, when I become aware of something that's repeating, I go to my life coach and I speak through that narrative. She helps me to widen that story. She challenges that story for me. Okay. Now, the second and final prompt, it's got a lot of explaining to it, is a more specific one. So this is where you'll need your chart, but don't worry if you haven't got it right now. Just listen in and you can make some notes, or you can come back to the recording to know which your energy type is. So the second journal prompt is specific to your energy type. There are 4 energy types, so you need to find that out. Now, depending on your energy type, I want you to have a tool to distract your mind from deciding. I want to give it another role to play. So I want to give you a tool to turn your focus to something which is important, rather than just continuing to focus on the narratives which you're becoming aware of. So when we say to the mind that you aren't here to make a decision for us, and we're taking away your decision-making power from the mind goes, well, what do you want me to do? What am I here for? The mind is like, well, if I'm not making a decision, then what am I doing? And the answer is to monitor. So the journaling technique is to start monitoring two different themes. So you'll need to know your energy type first, and then you'll understand your themes. So if you are a generator energy type or a manifesting generator energy type, at the end of each day, I want you to start noticing with your mind if you are more frustrated or more satisfied with how you used your energy today. So with this journaling exercise, I want you to make two lists, one labeled frustrated, the other one labeled satisfied. And I want you to reflect on your day and list out all of the tasks you did which felt stagnant, not flowing, frustrating. And on the other side, I want you to list all of the activities which were satisfying to do. All the activities you're like, hell yeah, it feels really good doing this. It's just, I don't know why, I just have the energy for it. Yeah, so hell yeah. If you are a projector, at the end of each day, I want you to reflect on the things which made you feel bitter, unseen, unrecognized. Perhaps these were moments or people or situations. And in the other column, I want you to make a list of all the things which you felt successful in. It's like a contentness in. It's likely at the beginning of doing this, there'll be a lot of things in the bitterness column, and that's okay. That's where our work is. That's our clue to alignment. I also want you to write down, if you're a projector, what you observed around you in your day. What did you see? What did you discover? And what did you learn from the conversations and interactions you have or observed? It's important for projectors to focus on outside of themselves. We want to get the mind looking outwards. That's why that's there. If you're a manifester, at the end of each day, I want you to reflect on what felt peaceful and what felt angry, what made you feel angry. What situations flowed and was just peaceful, you were going about your day, and what situations got you fired up because someone got in your way. Perhaps you tried to do your business idea and someone got in your way. What made you angry? I also want you, if you're a manifestor, to bring awareness to the people you have impacted today, even in little ways. What interactions did you have and how did you impact them? And it could be as simple as putting a smile on someone's face, or as big as quitting your job and leaving your relationship. Make a list of who was affected in the ripples of your decision. Think big scale, not just direct impact. Who was impacted and how, positively or negatively? Now, finally, if you're a reflector, I want you to notice when you were disappointed and when you were surprised. I want you to reflect on the times which were predictable today and disappointing because you could predict they were happening. And on the other side, I want you to write down what was surprising, unexpected, new, or different than you thought. Additionally, I want you to start noticing how you feel each morning, because you will feel different each morning. That's normal. So journal on that. And also at the end of each day, notice as you try this journaling exercise, if you are able to start seeing more things which are surprising to you. Perhaps you need to take a new route home, or you need to go to a different coffee shop or a different lunch place, or have a new conversation with someone. Okay. So what's important after this conversation we've had, after all the journaling that we've spoken about, after becoming aware of the purpose of the mind, The next thing is to know how to decide with the mind or without the mind. So we're not deciding with the mind. What are we deciding with? So the next call I've scheduled for 2 days' time from now. Normally we do these calls once a week. I've scheduled it in 2 days because it's important to know how to decide. Now we know it's not the mind. So if you're watching this on the replay, look out for the recording named How to Make Decisions Without the Mind. And if you're on this call or you're a member, feel free to join live in 2 days' time. How to make decisions without the mind.